Hi, and welcome to Helping People Perform, the podcast that gives you fascinating insights into those people whose chosen vocation is to help others perform at their best. From consultants to teachers, sports coaches to financial advisors, all of my guests share a passion for getting the most out of individuals, teams, and organisations. Enjoy the episode.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Helping People Perform podcast. Absolutely delighted today to be joined by an old mate of mine who I haven't seen in a number of years. I think we were talking about this before recording here. It was Twickenham a good few years ago, more than 7 years ago probably, but it's great to have you on the show. David Hellard, founder and CEO of Caffeine Bullet.
Hey Tees, how you doing? Oh, sorry, are you known as Tees?
Oh, mate, I'm known as many things, mate, many things. People have called me many names in my life. I'm good with all of them, so it's great to have you on.
And it's only now I've realised you've got a wonderful voice, which you never think about. Do your friends have nice voices or not? But now we're on a podcast. Like, yeah, Tees has got a great voice for podcasting.
Appreciate it, mate. Appreciate it. Oh, fantastic. Well, we're going to get into a load of conversation today about how you help people perform and how Caffeine Bullet in particular helps people perform. But could you give us a bit of background about you? You know, what have you done up to this stage? Where's your career taken you and your passions and what's got you to where you are today?
Well, I'll try and rush through it because it's quite bitty, which in some ways is the story of the journey to an extent. But did a maths degree, wasn't that excited by it. Went into television production and started doing development, and did that for 3-4 years. Really enjoyed it, but then was offered. I'd done door-to-door sales as a student in America. Right. Was offered a job with the company Ted Racing, friend in common, as a executive search consultant, and the money kind of drew me in, so switched to that.
Yep.
Did that for about 3 years, fell in love with someone in the office while I was in a relationship. Really bad idea. Quit the company, moved out of house, ended relationship. Then because of that, changed careers again into marketing with Accenture. But at the same point, then fell in love with running as well, which then starts to take over the story. Did Accenture for 6-7 years and learned a lot, but became a bit bored and wasn't really a big company person. So then left that to co-found a startup called ZipCube, which was Airbnb for meeting rooms.
Right.
Did that for quite a few years, where we got it off the ground. We did seed fund, raised $500,000, went pretty well. Then became apparent that we probably weren't going in the right direction together, and right. We're still friends. We still get on well, but we made the decision. Well, I guess I made the decision that, look, you need to go in the direction you want, rather than us not going in any direction quickly, because I want a different direction. So left to then not really know what to do. Around that time, I'd started a running podcast called Bad Boy Running. That took off, and on the back of that, and also as a runner myself, I'd run for British Fitness race team, Innovate obstacle race. I then decided I wanted to do something in running. There was no product that was a good way to take caffeine quickly during sport. So then created Caffeine Bullet, which was about 5 years ago. And that I kind of played at that for a couple of years. That's then become one of my full-time gigs. The podcast is still very successful, and I do a lot of hosting the running awards, the ultra stage, and I also now present the Golden Wild Trail series off the back of that, where I travel around the world, reporting from the best trail running races on earth. So here we are.
Amazing. It's a natural progression, isn't it? There you go.
Natural progression. Yeah.
You've got Maths TV, Accenture, doing your own thing. It's a brilliant story, and I know from whenever we've met in the past, the word that's always stuck with me is passion. You know, whenever you're a passionate man who isn't afraid to pursue those passions. And I just wanted to clarify something for our listeners here. When you say running, you don't mean going out and having a little 5K, do you?
Well, it can be,
yeah.
But I'm a reasonable runner. I'm not crazy, good. But I've kind of won marathons in different continents, or I've done ultras, ran across the Sahara, that type of thing. But so I guess as a layperson, you think I was a good runner.
Yeah.
If you know really good runners, they probably think, yeah, he's quite a good runner, but I'm not that good.
Right. But you've done those ultra distances, you've done some crazy events, haven't you, and extreme events and those things. What got you into those sort of experiences?
I think I love the story about life,
right.
About everything I enjoy is almost I love experiences. And so I went down the getting fast at marathon route that most runners seem to get drawn into, and almost maxed out what I thought was my ability after a few years, and then thought, well, I don't really want to be chasing spending more and more hours just to shave off a few minutes for a marathon time for the sake of my ego, really. And that's when I thought I like writing, so I went to Trail Running Magazine, said, look, I'm a writer. Do you want me to go to the Began Marathon and write about running this marathon? They're like, sure. Went and did well there. Then I thought, actually, this is fun. So then went to Afghanistan, did the marathon there, started doing ultras. And I guess the stories from the longer distances are bigger stories because they're the more extreme. People are more fascinated by them. But you have more goes wrong. There are more locations, more everything about it is more unknowns. Right. So it's in terms of development, it's brilliant because it's so hard to get right.
Right.
But you also get swept up in this community, and because of the obstacle racing, I was suddenly surrounded by far better athletes than I was. Right. One of them's gone on to be world trail champion, 5 times obstacle race champion. Miller won Ultimate Hell Week, the BBC show that I humiliated myself on by being terrible at press ups, and so that I then was like, right, I need to represent our team, and I was good at the long distance stuff, so I almost had to double down on ultra. So that's what I did until I got injured, and then 3 years of not being running, and there we go.
So you touched on there a little segue. You talked about Caffeine Bullet, and you found there was no way of getting caffeine. Tell us a little bit about caffeine, why it's important in running and exercise in general, and what got you to actually get off your ass in some ways and do something about it. You saw a problem. What made you actually tackle that problem?
Yeah, so caffeine, as everyone instinctively knows, is this wonder drug, and they tried to ban it from sport. So actually it shouldn't be legal in sport because of the performance benefits of it. But they found that it was too hard to ban because it's in chocolate, it's in coffee, it's in so many things that you consume, that how can you ban someone for life just because they've had a chocolate cake or they haven't realized. So caffeine reduces the perception of pain and fatigue. So it means when you're training, which could be lifting at the gym, could be going for a run, it makes it feel easier. Even if it isn't. It releases fat cells into the bloodstream that can be used as a fuel source. So that gives you that sense of energy, but also for endurance, it means that you're burning less glycogen from your muscles. So you're less likely to hit the wall. You actually have a more sustainable energy source using caffeine. So it extends your endurance and it increases alertness. So you combine all those things together, and it's a really good drug for helping you get the most out of your training sessions, or even motivating you when you can't be bothered to go for a training session. Gives you that pump. And I used to use it when I raced to really fire me up in the second half of a race, or to make sure when I was starting to flag, or I wanted to just smash the finish, if I was in a head-to-head, I could just take some caffeine. That's your afterburners.
Right.
But you got caffeine gels at the time, which are quite good, but then you get things like goo gels that have 20 to 50 milligrams of caffeine in. And actually for your peak caffeine, and don't take this unless you've practiced and you're really doing an A race, you need studies are showing you need between 3 and 6 milligrams of caffeine per kilogram of body weight, which is a massive amount. So say I'm racing at 70 kilograms, that is 210 milligrams of caffeine. A Red Bull is 77 milligrams.
Wow.
There's 3 Red Bulls for your optimal, for the beginning of your optimal dose. I've actually found it's about 5 milligrams. But So that's way too much. And if you think about a caffeine gel that's 20, 30, 50 milligrams, you're not going to be able to take that amount of caffeine gels in one go to get your caffeine. And also, by the time you want caffeine in a race, typically your stomach's gone because of all these horrible gels. You're sick of these gels. So I'd cut out Propas tablets and I pop them in my mouth, and that's how I get my caffeine quickly. That's absorbed through the stomach. And I was racing through the Sahara. I tried to pop one out. It fell into the sand because it was minimal packing. You carried all of your equipment. I didn't have any caffeine. It ruined my run for that day. I ended up walking. I was crying. I thought I was going to lose all the sponsorship money. And that's when I thought, why isn't there a product that you can take easily during exercise? Turns out when you chew something, the chemical elements are absorbed in your mouth through under your tongue, in your cheeks, in your throat. So it actually kicks quicker. So we developed a chew. So it means it's a kind of 5-minute kick and a peak in 10 to 15 minutes rather than 25 minutes to 40 minutes. Right. And the caffeine bypasses your stomach, so you're less likely to going to need to poo yourself, basically.
Right. That's a good thing.
Yeah. So that's where the concept came from. Yeah. And then in terms of how we did it, I've always been someone to just try funny things. I think it's partly because I was so bored at Accenture. Right. I used to design T-shirts by going on Fiverr and having people draw designs. And I made a product called Camel Toes, which was a bungee cord between camelbacks to help teams of runners run quicker because one could drag the other. Right. So I was used to kind of just trying stupid things, kind of stupid boy projects as such. Yeah. So when I had this idea, I didn't know anything about nutrition. Well, I didn't know anything about manufacturing. Just went on LinkedIn. I found someone who was a food scientist and said, look, do you want to help me with this? Paid them some money. They introduced me to a factory, then went to the factory and said, can we develop this together? They were open to it. And suddenly I didn't need any expertise. And we had this working product where I went out to a Kickstarter, raised a bit of money. Yeah. A friend helped me with packaging design. We almost crowdfunded ideas for logos, and suddenly you've got this viable product with an audience who some are friends, some trust your experience in sport to know that actually you've developed this product something good, and you've got your community and your market there, and it just has grown from that.
Right. Oh, amazing. I know I was listening to another podcast the other day, and one of the messages there, you're only one step away from expertise. All you need to do is find someone. It's so easy to find people these days. Yeah. As you say, if you've got no expertise in manufacturing, pick up the phone. It's amazing what people will say and the contacts they'll put you in touch with, the help that they'll give in order to share that expertise and help others be at their best. And that's what fires my passions as well. You know, it's like how do you connect people on that front? Yeah.
And I'd say my main advice for doing that, people write such long emails. They send such long messages. Don't do that. Just say, if I was to message you, Tees, I'd be like, Tees, I see you've been an expert in ... at McLaren. I'm trying to do this. Can I buy you a coffee? Can I have a 5-minute phone call? Can I just, if you write a long email, people can't be asked to read it. People feel they've got to write a long email back. Yeah. You send a short message like that. It's relevant. It's to the point. Put in one thing about yourself that is funny or just shows them that you're credible. And it allows the person to just go, yes, that sounds great. Right. Or no, because that's all you want. You don't want a long answer. You don't need, so just make it super short. It saves you less time, and then send it out to loads of people. Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. And if all that fails, you can do an angle that you've tried yourself, which is I want to talk about, which is Dragon's Den. So you decided to go. I was watching the clip again the other day, mate. Your singing skills haven't changed over the years. So I was like, you're still as good today as you ever were. How about that?
That was your practice as well.
So tell us about that experience. You went up to Dragon's Den. What motivated you to go that route, and how was the experience for you?
I wanted to do it. I'd had a lot of friends who'd been on it. Probably about 10 people I've known through my networks, or just I've met along the way have been on it, and it just seemed like a good idea where I back myself that it would hopefully go well, but you've got to prepare that it won't.
Yeah.
And it's an advert in front of 4 million people. So
Right.
why wouldn't you want that? You wouldn't want that if they hate it and they just take it down and suddenly you're destroyed as a company. But actually, I wanted to get their help and advice because I've kind of learned that there are some areas that I'm not very good at, or that even if I can do, I just don't end up doing things. And so I really needed a bit of a guidance how to scale,
Right.
and how to grow supply chains, how to establish like manufacturing businesses of a larger scale than what we're doing now. So my intent really, it didn't really need the money because we've always covered our costs or made some money every year since we started. So it was more about actually, guys, come on, who's going to help me here? I wanted Tej. He was the dragon I wanted. But he didn't come back on for the season I was on. So suddenly like, oh, who's this new guy, Stephen Bartlett? And like, well, yeah, he's probably pretty good to have as well.
Yeah. So you ended up with offer from 2 dragons, from Stephen Bartlett and Peter Jones? Is that right?
So we had an offer from 3 dragons.
Right.
I actually wanted Deborah from that lineup. Deborah was the one I wanted the most, just because I really respect her.
Yeah.
And we've struggled with coming up with completely eco packaging because it just doesn't really exist on a small scale.
Yeah.
But she hated me, so that went out the window. Not as quickly as the edit implied, but for some reason she just didn't warm to me at all. Right. And so yeah, we ended up with Peter. So Sarah offered. She's a runner. She liked the fact it was low calorie more than the other side of things. But then Peter and Stephen both came on board.
Yeah.
And pressured me into a very 10 seconds to make a decision. So,
oh mate, and how's that been since? What's the aftermath of a Dragon's Den offer? Does it change things dramatically overnight? Is it a bit of a fizzle, or does it slowly ramp up?
It's been good, I'd say. It depends on the type of brand and product you are. They've a lot of their investments fall through because either the due diligence doesn't show what people have said, or they just get to negotiations that become loggerheads. So not many companies that actually make it all the way through to proper investment.
Right.
I know there are a couple of other. I know one brand did 2 years worth of sales in 2 hours, I think.
Wow.
So if you're that type of product, that was a chocolate product,
right?
But if you're that type of product, then that everyone can buy, I think it just transforms your business overnight.
Yeah.
We were very much positioned by the edit, I think, for the simplicity of the narrative as being a very high level, almost elite level product for sports. Yep. Whereas we're mass market. We're anytime you have a coffee, anytime you have an energy drink, but that wasn't how it was positioned. So our sales were really good. We probably did 2 months worth in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Which is good. Yeah. We'd prepared for 2 years worth just in case. So we had a lot of stock for a while. And the support has been, there are certain elements we didn't need. We're not ready to be introduced to a Tesco or a Sainsbury's yet. Our supply chain couldn't take it. Right. Our marketing's not big enough to stay in the listings. So they've been really useful in things like guidance, legals, contracts. But actually, the thing I've really found beneficial is, I think as a small business, you instinctively, or even just based on analytics you've done, you think you know the right thing to do. Right. But you often delay doing that because there's still that element of doubt, and you're like, oh, it's a big risk. Yeah. Having 2 people who just go, yeah, you're right, do it. Right. Yeah. It speeds up all your big decisions. So instead of dragging out something that would take 3 to 6 months to maybe you never get around to, each time you have a meeting with them, you're like, yeah, this is what I'm thinking because of this. And they go, yeah, do it. Or they go, have you checked this? No, I haven't. Oh, yeah, okay. So in some ways, it's just sped up my decision-making and gives you that confidence to take bigger steps. Right.
No, and that probably brings us nicely onto this part of the podcast, which is about how do you get help in your performance? And I'm guessing the dragons and their teams. Does it sort of spread out into their teams, or is it direct contact only with the dragons?
It's never direct contact with the Dragons because they've got their own teams beneath them. If they're too busy. They were fairly open about that before. I will see Stephen from time to time. I'm sure I will do in the future. Peter, I don't know if he'd recognise me. I don't know if I'll ever see him again. Which is, that they've said that, they put that on the table as. I've found actually, I'm someone who I think I'm fairly multi-faceted. I can turn my hand to most things, which I think in some ways is super useful at the beginning of a company, but then super destructive.
Right.
Because it stops you actually delegating and seeking real expertise when you need it. So I'm now going through the process of realizing and understanding I now only do the things I either really enjoy or I'm really good at.
Right.
And so I've been trying to outsource as much of my business I can. We've done that partly through hiring.
Yep.
So we've now got someone who deals with the training side. We've on our website, we've got free marathon training plans. We've got training groups. We're putting together these training partners all for free, where if you're training for a marathon, through the podcast, we've interviewed the world's leading experts in fatigue or sleep or endurance, and we're using that to then help train people through the marathon with this content to educate them. So someone's doing that now. We've got someone in for social media because I don't have a good relationship with social media. I see it as almost, if I post something on social media, I have this huge feeling of guilt if I haven't replied to everyone who's messaged back. Right. Because I'm still in the old school. So I've got someone in for that. But I've started to outsource a lot to just different parts of the world. So my supply chain and my finance is done by an accountant in the Philippines, which is super cheap, but also she can do things overnight and can work different hours. And I found Upwork when I went to find a factory in Indonesia for our new products called Ginger Raws, Ginger Chew. The only country that make the type of chews we're now creating, this like raw, natural one, is Indonesia. So I don't speak Indonesian. So I went on there and went on Upwork and just found someone, said, who can find me a factory? Right. And someone went out and found me a factory and helped negotiate all these things. And so I always try and think, what is something that what are the things that aren't valued for my time? Right. And one of the things the Dragons did tell me is that I'm thinking as if I'm £1 million business, and I'm thinking of my time as the MD of £1 million business. Whereas I need to be thinking and acting like the MD of a £5 million business. Right. Because if I'm not putting in place the structures, or there's so much of your time as a small business can be spent on paperwork, on admin, that it's when you've broken through all of that, that's the element of your business that grows it. Right. So if you're not outsourcing all of these smaller bits quickly, you're never going to grow to be the £5 million business that you want to be, or the 10 million, or whatever it may be. Yeah. So I've started to use contractors, and I, just from a personal point of view, I always try and find females in poor Muslim societies, because I think that probably has the biggest impact on society in those countries. Right. From a kind of a social change point of view, and just trying to outsource as many functions as I can. So that's where we are at the moment. There's teething problems within that, but then it's great to have someone just do all this work for you. Where, and how I manage that as well. I record videos and do voice notes to my team. So I've only met my team once. I've never met Brenda in the Philippines. We've only met in the flesh once. So rather than writing all these long texts, we just leave each other voice notes the whole time. Right. And I do that when I invite people on the podcast, or because it's so much more efficient and it's more fun. Yeah. But on everything I do, I'll record my screen doing it and then just upload those videos to YouTube. So we've now got all this training on when we've got a very unique voice in our emails. That's probably the thing we do best is our email systems, and our customer management is fun, it's funny, it's energetic, it's informative. And that's quite hard to get someone else to do. So we're constantly recording videos where we go through analyzing edits or analyzing what someone's written, so that people can come back and back again. And if you're trying to train people, actually, that's such a nice way to be able to replicate being in the office with someone and building a resource that future employees can come back to and see, this is a video about how to do the Amazon downloads. This is a video about how to edit our imagery to be the right color scheme. And so I found tools like that have been just as useful as kind of the approach.
Right. And those setting and documenting the standards of an organization, particularly as you grow, as you say, you bring new people on. How do they know what color scheme to use? How do they know what's the approach that you like to, how you like to put your emails across? So I think that's a brilliant way of capturing that in an authentic way, but also an efficient way as well, which is fantastic. So awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a couple of quick questions towards the end here. First one is around if you were able to take your skill set, your experience, and help any individual team or organization and help them perform, who would you want that to be?
Ooh, because that's a hard one, because actually my love is running. And so I'd want to be in someone like NN Running and helping them. So NN Running is a Dutch company where Kipchoge's NN Running, Bekele's NN Running.
Right.
I've got Nienke Brinkman, who's the Golden Trail champion, but also second place in the European Marathon this year. Jake Smith. It's all the talented marathon runners from around the world. I probably want to be involved with them just because I love the sport. But outside of that, then probably Street Child. It's a charity that I always raise money for. The Beerathon event I do, all the proceeds go to that. And they educate, them over the running charity or Free to Run. They're all charities that are incredible. Free to Run helps women through the power of running in areas of conflict. So Afghanistan, Iran, places like that, Syria. The running charity helps homeless, young and refugees get off the streets through the power of running as well, and building confidence and helping with therapy where you're not face to face with someone, but side by side. And Street Child educates children in the poorest areas of Earth. So helping them would be something where it's just such a good purpose. Right. It's amazing. And two of them link in with running as well. I'd say those.
Fantastic. And I'll make sure we've got links to those in the show notes here as well. So if any of our listeners feel motivated to go and check out those charities and donate your time, money and effort, that's always a great cause to be following up on. So appreciate that, Dave. And flipping that around a bit, if you were able to sit down and have a cup of coffee, have a beer with somebody, any individual team, organisation, that sort of thing, so that you could up your own performance, who would you want to sit down with and have that chat?
Or I've probably got three if I can be.
You go for it, mate. You go for it.
I know he's a bit of a knob end, but Bono, I think he's still incredible. He's incredibly annoying in some respects, and I understand that, but people forget Bono caused the debt of third world nations to be dropped globally. Like, that is insane. Yeah. Absolutely insane. He's written some of my favorite songs at a point when I loved music as well. So I'd love to actually speak to him about the ways in which he's almost used his position to further charities and to actually fight for others, because that's something that I feel now, particularly with the podcast and where I am in the running world, I could be doing more to help. Bob Geldof, I think, incredible. He's one of my utter idols that people I don't think appreciate as much as they probably should as well. Obviously, he's done a bit of music. Live Aid was incredible, but people don't appreciate as well. He launched deckchair.com. Yeah, I don't really know what that is anymore, but he's launched companies like that. But he did the big breakfast. He's the reason we had the big breakfast. Don't forget your toothbrush is because of him. He he did Planet. Planet was his production company. He then sold it for millions and launched 10 Alp, which then did Survivor as one of their TV shows, and all these massive other formats. So he's someone who actually has been unbelievably successful in so many ways that people don't appreciate, and he's got that charity aspect to him. And then obviously, like everyone, Branson, just because he's done so many different businesses, including media, that I think I could really learn from him and how to scale when you've got like more than one pie. You've got when you're doing too much. So those would be my three big dogs.
Oh mate, what a sit round the table that'd be, eh? Awesome. And how do people find out more? How do people get in touch with you, with the product, find out more about what you're doing and your podcast, etc.? So
podcast is Bad Boy Running, and that's split. It's twice a week. If you're into your running, you'll like the bad stuff, which is Jodie and I just talking about what's going on in the running industry. Very silly, a bit rude at times. And then we also have an interview, which is the longer form podcast, where it's the most exciting and interesting stories in running, as opposed to just how to get faster. Caffeine Bullet, caffeinebullet.com. You can buy it online globally through Amazon, but we make more money and it's cheaper through our websites. And if you're thinking of training for a marathon, just go on to, we've got some 5K plans as well, half marathon plans, 10K plans, and we're going to be doing triathlon plans and open swimming plans in the future, cycling. But we literally have analyzed the best training plans online and made them better, because we've used my Excel spreadsheets and the 80-20 theory, but also looking at ACWR, work increase ratio percentages, to make sure that they're adjusted to actually really increase steadily and make sure that training sessions aren't too hard and doing the right thing at the right time. So they now, I say this with all confidence, they're the best training plans online in the world, and they're free. Yeah. So just go on Caffeine Bullet and training plans. Right. And if you know someone running a marathon this year or next year, send them there, and they can join the community for free, and they'll get weekly emails where we do speak to the physiologist for the sub 2 project, or Paul Radcliffe's physiologist, or the team coach from NN Running, who's Kipchoge's coach, or Guillaume Millet, who's an expert in UTMB study, fatigue, and a doctor of fatigue. Those type of people. So they're all involved in it. So
amazing!
You can find it there.
Well, we'll definitely pop some links in there, and people can get in touch, and amazing resources for free, as you say. The price is right, so come on in. Mate, always an absolute pleasure to chat with you, and thanks so much for coming on today. Learned so much about not only the product of Caffeine Bullet and how that helps people, but your approach to life in general, into business, and how you've helped others perform throughout your career. So massive thanks for coming on today, David Hellard.
Thanks for having me, Tees.
Mate, speak soon.
Cheers, Tees.
Cheers. As a special thank you to the Helping People Perform listeners, David has kindly set up a 20% discount coupon code. So if you go to caffeinebullet.com, search for your products, go to the checkout where it asks you if you've got a coupon, use the code Helping People Perform, all one word, and that will give you 20% off that order. So thanks, David, for that, and thanks again to David and the team at Caffeine Bullet. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, then please give the podcast a rate, review, and share. I'm Paul Teasdale, and from sausage making to banking, oil and gas to Formula One, I help people perform. If you'd like to find out more and have a conversation, contact me via helpingpeopleperform.com.